Hello, everyone. My name is David Licata from the UCLA Library. I work in the Digital Initiatives and Information Technology Department. We are the IT department. I'm joined with Evan Manzetti, who works in the same department and on our LRTSS team, and I'll let them explain that in a moment. Jessica Mentesoglu, if I pronounce it right. She's in charge. She's one of the supervisors, managers in charge of CLICC and the alerts team. And we're also joined by Alan Levetkin, who is on the same team as them and manages the images for the dual boot Macs, Mac loaning that we do, our lab computers in CLICC. And I work with constantly bouncing ideas off of for virtual and how to do certain things with the image. And then myself, as I said, I work on the team, and one of our hats, we all wear many hats here, is I manage, and I had to build the virtual infrastructure for Citrix, and that's the product we use. So, Jessica.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Dave. I'm Jessica, and my team LRTSS, LRTSS, Learning and Research Technology Services and Support, focuses on just that. For the UCLA Library, we pretty much handle all the services involving instructional technology. So anything from computer labs to checking out laptops, that's kind of the focus of our team. I apologize in advance because I will need to duck out a little early from this presentation, but if you have any questions for me, feel free to email me. I'm going to be putting my contact information in the chat. We're here to talk about sort of the campus application or campus services application for virtual desktops. And Dave's going to also address sort of the staff application, and the staff scenarios are relatively familiar and obvious to many of you. But I think our team, which focuses on CLICC services, the Campus Library Instructional Computing Commons services, will be able to show you sort of the advantages to having virtual desktops in that kind of service scenario. CLICC is celebrating its 20th year in providing these instructional technology services to the campus. And it's one of those sets of services that is available to everybody regardless of their department. So all UCLA faculty, staff, and students. And I'll let Evan share some slides with you.
Hi there, folks. Yeah. So my name is Evan Manzetti, as Dave Jessica said. I'll be taking over the presentation in a moment, but for now you can enjoy this lovely picture of Royce Hall, which is right across from Powell Library, the building we are in right now. So my role, I work on the LRTSS team, as Dave and Jessica said. I do a lot of support for the laptops, for maintaining them and keeping them up and running, but I also do a lot for general CLICC services, analysis and support of instructional and learning technologies elsewhere throughout the library, not just for those Campus Library Instructional Computing Commons services. And I want to share with you a little bit about what CLICC as a group within library IT does. That way you guys have a little bit of a basis for understanding where we're going to go greater into this presentation, talking more about virtualizing software and how the virtual applications work. So, all right. Let's see. All right, in a moment, I'm gonna, sorry folks, I'm trying to switch the screen share. There we go. Okay. So as I previously mentioned, one moment folks, I need to adjust the Zoom window, the wonders of technology. All right, so as I mentioned, we all, in addition to working for the UCLA Library, we work for a subset of the UCLA Library IT group, which is CLICC, the Campus Library Instructional Computing Commons. You can find more information about CLICC at library.ucla.edu/CLICC. So CLICC in general is a group that we try to help people study, teach, do whatever it is they want to do with UCLA tools and services. We want to give them the tools they need to access all of our resources, and we want to make it easy to make all of that happen. It looks like we're frozen on the presentation. Let me just try to refresh that then. Oh, sorry, folks. That's my connection with Zoom. So, anyways, we host a variety of technological solutions throughout the library that enable us to do this, such as a computer lab that involves over 100 desktop computers, both Windows and Mac machines, in both. Oh, beautiful! Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. And go to the next slide.
Okay, let's try.
All right, beautiful. So we have a large computer lab in Powell Library, this library here, which has over 100 desktops that have hundreds of software offerings on them. The same computers are used in at least 4 computer classrooms that we have throughout 2 of our libraries. The largest of those classrooms can support 50 students at a time. We have several group study rooms, I believe 15 in the Young Research Library, which is our second major library on campus, and another 7 here in Powell Library. The group study rooms have technology built into them. So there are screens with connections for audio and video, allowing students to bring their laptops to work with groups or to study on a larger screen in the group study room. We also have more open collaboration pods that allow for students to work together with groups in a more boisterous environment. They're not really prevented from being quiet there. We also have laptop lending, which has in total over 200 laptops available in lending, 500 total if you include all laptops that we use throughout lending services and classrooms throughout the library. The laptops are dual boot MacBook Pros. They have the exact same software that all of our computers do anywhere. So no matter where you go, you're able to use the same software. And to cap it off, we have what we call satellite stations. In the libraries that don't have our main computer lab, we have smaller groups, anywhere from 8 to 12 desktop computers at a time, where they can access our own machines. So to give you a sense of what it looks like when I mean this, this is a picture of our computer lab in Powell Library, and we have lending services throughout 7 different libraries on campus, all over the campus environment, where you can check out our dual boot laptops like this and other services, such as our iPad lending service in the Arts Library. And overall, you also can see here the satellite locations. You may not be able to tell from this distant picture, but the computers that they're being used there are the same in our computer labs. The important thing about this is that no matter where you go, you're going to have the same service, and you're going to be able to use the same tools. Maybe it's something you need to use for a class or for a research project. You can use it anywhere. And in fact, people do use them. So in last quarter, so fall of 2016, we had a high number of usage for the satellite locations. We had at least 12 or at least 11,000 unique users, and we had a total number of 81,000 logins, which is just for 1 quarter. So we have a high number of use from individuals, and we have high turnover. So the individuals use our stations a large number of times throughout the library. The laptops themselves have the same programs on them. They have both Windows and Mac OS. So lots of programs. We update them every quarter, so that way we keep them up to date with the latest software, and we keep them secure, so we're able to fix any problems relatively quickly. They're available to anyone at UCLA as long as you show up with a Bruin card. You can use a 48-hour checkout, and it's done through your library account. So the general rule of thumb we say to most people is, if you can check out a book, you can probably get a laptop from us. So it's a nice thing. And we obviously like books, we don't charge for that. And we do have a highly used service. The physical laptops are checked out over 115,000 times every year. Those are the actual numbers for last year, which is in fact roughly 400 per day. And it's a very popular service on campus. That is being used by 11,000 different people. And to break that down a little bit by who is using that, of the student population who uses our laptops, As you can see, we have 8,000 graduate students and 8,000 undergraduate, 2,000 graduate students, which is 1 in 4 of all of those student groups using it. So we're a very important service for the campus, and being able to provide these computational services have proven important consistently over the years. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily always enough. So we've broken down this service to 7 different locations. Wherever you can find CLICC laptops, as you may have noticed from the previous map, you can also find satellite stations. So we're trying to provide our computational and software services in as many different locations around campus as we can. But again, we're always having to look towards new ways of doing that. So that's the way we've been doing things for a while, and it's been working out. But there's a lot that goes into supporting that computer, those computers, and those software. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan Lebetkin, who actually handles image creation and handles software configuration for all of our CLICC equipment. And he'll take it from here to talk a little bit about how that actually works.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alan, and I basically run all of the imaging and cloning workflows and process that we do here at CLICC. So I'm sharing right now the desktop for one of our Mac laptops that we have. So you can see this is what it looks like. As Evan mentioned, we do have a large operation going on here. I mean, we have, just in a nutshell, again, we have over 200 Windows desktops, over 500 dual boot MacBook Pro laptops. We have over 200 pieces of software on each operating system, Mac and Windows alike. And we put a strong emphasis on synchronizing the user experience. So we want users to picture CLICC as a brand, and we want them to have the same user experience across all of our different platforms and offerings that we have. So this creates a large challenge when creating an imaging workflow and a master image in order to synchronize this whole experience. So as you can see here on my image here, I mean, we basically run 3 different images. We're running a Mac laptop image, a Windows laptop image, and Windows desktop image, which is domain joined. Here I have it. Let's see if I can show you guys here. This is my latest updated version of the Windows desktop image with all of my software programs on here. There we go. Look at all these programs, so many of them. Look at all that. I have to configure each single one of these so that when users log in, all the programs are going to run the same across all these images. And a lot of work goes into that. I have my post-clone script folder here. These are some of the scripts. Probably about 80% of these scripts will run on computers, depending on which deployment that computer group is in, a laptop or a desktop, or like even certain locations of our desktops, we want to remove certain printers. So there's a lot of scripts that are running, and this is all just a lot of work to maintain. So what happens is with, so why we like the, let me get out of that. So why we like the virtualized environment is because it essentially eliminates the whole overhead and all the work that we're doing in maintaining all these 3 different images. So right now it's not an alternative. We're not pushing it as that. Or right now it's not like a replacement for images and cloning. That's not what we see it as. We see it as another offering that we have, but it's a forward-thinking offering, and it's really allows the best balance between focusing our work on what really matters to the users, which is just the applications. The users only really care about these applications. And this allows us to present them with these applications without all the work of cloning and imaging that we do. Another issue that we have where this helps as a solution is during the quarter, when we actually push our deployments out, all the machines are frozen, as Evan mentioned. We use deep freeze, so users can't change or modify any programs. Every time they restart the computer, any changes that they made wipe across the system, and it goes back to the default state that we cloned it into. One problem that we have though is because we have such a large user base and client base, we get a lot of requests oftentimes from faculty and staff for last minute changes or programs that they really wanted for that quarter, but we weren't able to accommodate, or they got their request in too late, which is often the case you'll find in education. Or maybe they discovered an issue that is interfering with some kind of assignment that they had with their class that they weren't even aware of until they found this out in the middle of the quarter. Well, this is where we can actually come in and say, all right, we can't make these changes on all of our hundreds of laptops and desktops that we have out there on the fly, because that's just too much for us to be able to handle while the quarter is in session. We say, okay, well, what we can do as an alternative is we can put it up on this virtualized platform, and your students can log in online and access the software that you need with whatever changes that you've requested. So this allows us a flexibility that we can actually do on the fly as the quarter is in progress. And that's really important for a site like us, where we have so many different users with so many different interests involved. It's really hard to coordinate that exactly every quarter the way we want. So we have to leave room for basically unforeseen requests. And this is where we can kind of help out there. Another point I want to make is not really now, but I think in the future, imaging will be kind of going away and cloning workflows. I found an article regarding the new Mac OS Sierra and also the Apple file system that's coming soon-ish. It's looking like, now I'm not totally educated on this whole thing, but it's looking like imaging will be kind of going away as technology progresses, and with this new Apple file system that we have coming down the road. That doesn't really speak to the Windows side of things, but I see if this is a problem with Apple, then that's already a showstopper with us. We have to have some kind of alternative ready to go. I'm not saying it's going to be soon or even in the medium future, but this is something that's coming down the line. The other problem that we have with our large deployment is just the costs involved. Every one of these laptops costs about $2 grand because it's very high-end hardware. We have to purchase with higher specs because we're running very resource-intensive software for some of our programs. So we do a lot of upgrades, and we spend a lot of money for each of these fleets that we deploy. What virtualization can let us do, if we think into the future and how we might have some kind of future deployments where imaging is kind of gone and the hardware costs are getting kind of high, is we're thinking we could have some kind of deployment with Chromebooks maybe that are configured for web access, and then all of our programs are virtualized and available on the web and through cheap Chromebook hardware. That's a long-term goal. Short-term, it's not really possible because not all applications are currently ready to be digitized and virtualized. Not all applications are created to be licensed and distributed that way. And also for some of our more heavy-duty professional type applications, they require a lot more heavy local resources on the system, so we do need the better hardware available in those instances. So we may have some kind of grab bag solution in the meantime. So while we offer this and continue to offer more and more virtualized programs until it starts to take over. Probably the last bit of resistance there to going fully digital, or fully virtual, is just user-based and user education. Users do have a lot of technical issues sometimes trying to access these services because sometimes they're using their own personal laptops and they might not have some kind of configuration ready. They have to interface with us in order to be able to actually get it working the way they need it to. They're not yet used to uploading files to a server, working on a server, downloading files. This is all improving, I think, as students become more used to technology and as technology progresses, but we're not quite there yet to make it a seamless service the way we envision in the future. But that's where we're at right now. Just to summarize, it really offers an easy way for us to synchronize the user experience. It allows us to focus on just applications and not worry so much about all the overhead of cloning and imaging, and it can reduce costs, and also in the future it can help with the disappearance of imaging and an alternative to that. So that's my little section of the talk. I'm going to turn it over now to Dave.
Hello, Dave. You can share screen at the bottom of the group. Yep.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how this all kind of incorporates into how our environments share the same services, and how the infrastructure is all on one system, yet running completely separate of each other in a sense. So we'll just start from the beginning. We were given a mandate from our AUL to say, hey, start virtualizing. We're going to try virtual desktops, and we did. And the first iteration of it, we were using Citrix, XenApp, and XenDesktop 6.5. We had a perfectly running desktop, and all of a sudden it stopped. We don't know why. Citrix and about 3 other companies could not figure it out. So we had Software Shortcut running, and it was painful for me to support. And I'll give you some statistics why on this. So I decided, let's create some video instructions. That way it's gonna help my job. I can just point people to it. We figured out over time, and you can see by the 3 videos on the right side of the screen, how many views they got. In the beginning, I had pre-formatted PDFs I was sending to people saying, follow these directions. This is for Mac, this is for Windows, this is for Java. Here's what you do. Here's how you import a SAS file. No one read it. I shortened it. Nobody read it. As soon as I put instructions on it, you can see how many views they've gotten in 1 to 2 years. That's huge. I consider that a failure also. Your system should not be that complicated whatsoever. You shouldn't have that many views. So when we decided to go with the newer version, and we said we're going to rebuild it from scratch and go with the newest version, you can see how many views these videos now have. It dropped dramatically, which means 1 of 2 things. Either no one's watching them, or the instructions should be simple enough that you don't need these videos. There are some people who watch them, which is great. I know I would watch 1 or 2 of them and probably close it out after the first few seconds. And that's why they're short. We try to make them under a minute or under a minute 30 seconds. That way you can go to what you want when you want it. And Jessica brought that idea up to me because I was going to force everyone to watch 8 minutes, 43 seconds of a video. That's not a good idea. You'll get more questions and support. So when we did this, and I'll go right to it, we ended up using an authentication system that no one said we could do. No one in any educational university or business is doing this right now, which is pretty cool because we thought it should just be automatic that this is available. We are authenticating with the UCLA Log On, but we don't actually have access to the domain itself. All you need is a user with read access. And this is for any system. It doesn't matter what you build. As long as there's a read access, that's all that's necessary. So we don't see any user accounts. We don't see any passwords. We don't have to store anything, and it's fantastic. So I can log in with my UCLA Log On. And as you saw on the screen, you'll get this. You can launch any application. We put the panels up because I thought it'd be a lot easier than searching all apps. And so far, the response has been pretty good, I think. We rarely get a support ticket. So we have things for Adobe alternatives. They click on it. We have these up right now because you can't virtualize Adobe. Thank you, Adobe. We have programming statistics apps. We have R, the different flavors. My son recommended BlueJ, which I found out is used. ArcGIS. We have it up here. It works. Is it great? I've seen it work great. You need a graphics processing card, and it will do amazing work. We have CAD software. We're testing out a free version. And then, of course, statistics. So when a user clicks on it, I'll just start MATLAB. This is the best part of the whole system. They don't need a client. They don't need anything. It pulls up in a window, and in a few seconds here, you get MATLAB. So once it starts, I have it in the instructions, and I'll follow my own instructions. Let the application finish loading, which MATLAB is a hog, and we might be getting hit right now. There it goes. You have this. I go back. Let's say I want to bring up another application. I'll bring up static. And as you can see, it looks like it disappeared, but it actually hasn't. Drag that to the side. Okay, yeah, there we go. As you see, MATLAB is there, but static pulls up in it. They have the ability to switch between applications at the bottom. We purposely set that there. They have the ability to go full screen, download, upload, copy from their clipboard. Since we don't want any user accounts in the system, we've also configured this to go through a group policy setting where it uses an anonymous account. So if I were to open up a file, as you can see it's going here, I'm not allowed to do anything. I can see this stuff, but I can't do anything. And this is what we see on the user side. We can get that information of who logged in, but it has to come from the NetScaler. And we can't see what they may have done. It would take a lot of work. Everyone's anonymous. Everyone can upload, download files, do whatever they want. As soon as I close an application window, it's completely gone off the server. They have no access to the C drive. They have no access to file systems, to the program folders, nothing. They can do whatever they want within limits of their own document folder, and they're not allowed to run executables or anything. Once it's done, close it out. That application's gone, session's gone. So then this translates over to the staff side. On the staff side, I log in with my library account, which is completely different. And this does authenticate against our Active Directory. With Google Chrome, this always happens. So you do this. At the same time, we have the different applications. We have different photography apps, circumventing Adobe, since we can't virtualize it. We have applications for us to administer computers if we need to. We put Office 2016. This is a pet project because it supports MIDI, so I'm trying different music applications. We have our library specific. People can remote into their computers through Citrix without having to use their personal workstation to remote in. And we've also blocked that and limited it because we don't want anyone transferring viruses or anything else unsuspecting that they may have on their computer. So, but the key thing is we can limit the access on this side, and we can also give them access to all the software CLICC has with their own login, with the settings that they do for work or for teaching saved on the server. That's a big difference, and that works great. So one, we don't know who you are when you log in, and the other side, on the staff side, we do. We also have desktops, which we are in the process of testing a lot with. We want to move to Windows 10 on those and go from there. So overall, the infrastructure is a little complicated, but what VDI application or infrastructure isn't. I mean, if any of you on here have tried to install VMware's vCenter and done upgrades, you will definitely understand it. I've been lucky enough to avoid having to do that. I've seen what everyone else has gone through, and I've been hiding out when the volunteers step forward. So the potential for this goes into a few different areas. So in the CLICC situation, there is something Citrix uses, and I know UCOP is already using part of it. You're able to stream, not necessarily stream, but you're able to put an image at any time on any computer with the right configurations. So for the classroom situation, let's say a professor is going to teach a class and they only want specific software, nothing else on there. They don't want the entire CLICC image. Alan would be able to, under provisioning services with Citrix, send that image out to those computers, change the classroom in a half hour to an hour. Once the class is done teaching, put back on the CLICC image. Oregon State is already doing that. Florida is doing that with in their library of 300 computers. It makes it really easy, and you can do that for staff computers. Laptops, if you want to know about those, it works. There is a version that Citrix has that comes with their Platinum Edition that you can put on a bare metal kind of install, and you can throw the image on there. Works offline and online, and it's completely secure, VPN access, everything. So you have remote workers from anywhere in the world. You can set up a VPN for your staff. So let's say they're on their own computers or they're somewhere else in the world. They run the VPN, they'll get right to their folders. All their shares are mapped automatically through the NetScaler. You have to configure it, but you can. Multi-factor authentication. This supports Duo, Shibboleth, and Google, and more. It's just a matter of finding the instruction set. If you're looking at the authentication piece, on top of that, you can do identity and access management with it. All you need to know is who's in a group wherever the stuff is. Wherever the accounts live, the administrator just needs to tell you what group they're in. Once he tells you what group they're in, you can start limiting access and not even have any of the accounts. It's fantastic. We're not doing it yet, though. Let me just put that in there. Statistics are incredible. You do need, there's a number of ways to get statistics. Bare minimum is the default install for Citrix, which would be Desktop Director. Just beware that our anonymous authentication is supported, yet not supported. When I did an upgrade, I had probably about 7 to 8 Citrix support technicians on the phone trying to solve the issue of why it wasn't working when we upgraded. I found it out later on, and I still have to fix it. But with your statistics, I couldn't believe what we were getting in the beginning. Stuff jumped immediately the day we went live. And for the first month, it was incredible. I was really happy to see it. I think we had 50 people at one time, and we hadn't even announced it really. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't, people were just finding it. Along with that, you can't, if it's possible for any developers, you could use the authentication piece we use, and I'm trying to convince our developers of this, to use that to access applications within our library from outside and inside. You can do identity access management on your own stuff without having to go through a Shibboleth, or you could use it through Duo, through Google. You can do it all on your own, and you can get to it for our library stuff. The support is a lot easier to do that, in my opinion. Others may disagree. But to have something that's all in one spot, redundant, and you can sit there and just configure it at will without having to go through a huge headache, putting things in a bubble, it's great. We do that right now for our inventory application, which I did on the last webinar. And then to close up on this, it really, you have to think about this part of it. This isn't going to go up in one day. This isn't going to happen overnight. It'll happen quickly if you dedicate the time to it. The funny story is our director came to me and said, hey, you said you were going to have this up now. What happened? I said, all right, give me 6 months. I said 6 months because I also work the help desk. I also work a few other hats. We're constantly talking to, we have student workers who will come and ask us questions, and that's great. You know, we want them to learn. We also work on about 3 other projects, each of us probably at any given time, and we'll get more at the same time. So we play a lot of different roles. Right now, I'm the sole person along with a coworker who understands it that can get in here and make changes. If this goes, if this crashes, I'm hiding, because you need to have a team, and that team needs to be able to understand everything that Jessica, Evan, and Alan talked about, and understand the server side. They need to be able to build an image. They have to have worked the help desk. I really think these are important requirements. They have to know how to configure an app. Do they know how to get the Flash installer so that it doesn't ask somebody to install the ask.com toolbar? You have to know where to get that stuff at. Do they know any PowerShell? You have to know a slight bit because you may have to PowerShell script something in place. You can steal other people's code, but you got to know something. You have to be able to Google better than everyone else and find the solutions when people are telling you it can't be done, because it can. We've proved it with our authentication. So that's part of the soft costs. Understand the experience, and then these people have to be willing to learn and experiment. That's huge. If you're not willing to take a chance and go out there and try something, and if it fails, okay, we're going to do it again because we know it can happen. Make sure you don't hire, on top of that, make sure you don't hire a consultant who promises you the world. And they push all the buttons. And they're on their phone every other second. Make sure they're dedicated to you. I think some of them can work really well. I think others won't. So when you hire one and you start seeing how their workflow is and what they do, you don't like it, remove them immediately. In another lifetime, I was that guy that said, hey, yeah, we can do that for you for a price. And I was always there helping the clients. But when I worked for WebMD, I didn't say that out loud, did I? They said, no, we can't do that, but we're going to tell them we can. And that's the difference in a lot of consultants. They may not know. They may know as much as I do. Who knows? But make sure they actually care about you. That's huge. Oh, and for resources, make sure you give your people the resources necessary, the time necessary. Shift resources as much as possible and get it done right. When it's wrong and when it's not working right, you're going to get more complaints. We went live with this because I was sick of the support for our old system. One of the things that happened was people were like, oh, I like this. It's so much better. And when I just tell them, no, it's not. It just works the same way as the other one did. It's a little easier to get to, but it's the same thing because of all the pretty colors. They liked it. They thought it was aesthetically pleasing on the eyes. It worked for them. And they could get to things a little bit faster. So that's about it. Rounding it out, it really does take a team of people who know a lot. I knew what I worked on the image for CLICC on the desktop side, and Evan worked on the Mac side before Alan came on board. And he was in another library supporting over in our biomedical library. Alan took what we were doing to a whole nother level. And I go to him for things, and I ask him questions. And he helps me out installing applications on here. We bounce ideas off each other. At the same time, we're also doing about 10 other jobs because we don't have a lot of people to do a lot of the infrastructure. So just make sure you give your people what they need as much as possible within reason, and let them experiment and try. And that's huge. And gladly, I'm still here giving this webinar, so that means my experimentations have been too messed up. So does anyone have any questions?
Can I actually jump in and I want to speak a little bit to what Dave was saying about just the appearance and the aesthetics of it. I'm myself am this is Alan, by the way, sorry. I myself am very big on aesthetics, and I think that's part of the sales of this and the pitch that you're gonna have in order to making it successful to your directors and to your user base. When I took over the CLICC image, as I've mentioned, a huge part of my big drive was to unify the user experience. So I made sure that all of our backgrounds were the same, all of the applications launched the same across multiple images, and like Dave said, from the old system to this new system that you're seeing now, there's not many technical changes, but it's all an appearance in the ease of the user. When I have an application launch on one of my images, I make sure that there's no update reminder pop-ups, or maybe they try to save something and it wants to save to the wrong folder. We pay attention to all these very fine little details, and I work with Dave to make sure that the applications on the virtual side of things behave in the exact same way. So they're not getting different pop-ups for the same application depending on where they launch it. And I found that users are very willing to forgive technical issues just as long as the experience is smooth. And I also think it really helps with your image and building your brand within the university and also outside of the university. When people think of CLICC, they think of computers that just work. They're very well run. They have all of the resources they need. They know that when they sit down and start working at a CLICC computer or this CLICC service, such as this virtualized service, they know they're not going to have random pop-ups and any sort of technical issues just trying to access their flash drive or anything like that. We make sure to take care of all that for them. And as Dave said, all of this does add a lot of work onto the process. You can do it quickly and cheaply and you know, put a big push to rush it out there, and maybe not everything's configured exactly right. But I think that really hurts your long-term goals of making everyone like the service and adopt the service. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when it comes to aesthetics, and I think it's kind of the unsung prong of this whole pitch that we're making, and selling these configurations to your user base and your managers when you actually go out there in the field.
And if I can add something, and I just guess we're all piling on here, but to go along with actually both the aesthetics and a point that Dave made about needing to understand the system from the user's point of view, where they see the computer and they want to just interact with software, to the server point of view, I think that it's a really important thing to have that through line. You know, you have people like me who don't understand the image creation to the level that Alan does, and I don't understand what Dave does with the virtual desktop support.
I don't either.
Oh, there we go. But at the same time, because we all have a shared understanding of what the user wants, and we constantly check in on that, it enables us to have these conversations for support, no matter what our level of expertise is. And the aesthetics help for that too. This is just a quick anecdote. It's going to seem like a small thing to make the desktop image the same, but change it every quarter. That has helped our support so much. A lot of our support works with student workers, and it is so useful to be able to have a student worker come up to someone like Alan or Dave, who maybe they don't speak with every day, but simply tell them, hey, I've got an issue on this computer. It doesn't have the same picture in the background that it normally does. It has this picture instead. And we can immediately tell you, oh, well, this one is from 3 quarters ago. There's some reason it wasn't updated. So the aesthetics can also be perfectly functional too. It goes a long way to making that happen.
What he's talking about is this. You see this background image?
There we go.
Here? Yeah. So if you look on the right there, you see winter 2017. That's that quarter. That's the image version for that quarter. We changed the background. If you look at my my one for next quarter, you notice it had a different image there.
Right.
And oops, I was closing. Anyway, you get the point. I'm screwing up with the windows, but yeah, we make it easy for our users and our students to know what exactly they're dealing with, what configuration.
And just going to add on to a little bit about that. With the instruction sets we have, I mean, for lack of better terms, we try to make these idiot-proof. If my godkids who are 8 years old can log in the software shortcut with my account, my test account, of course.
Almost slipped up there, Dave.
Yeah. And they can click and start an app. They click it multiple times and still only one will show up and still work. That's success. So what we did on top of that was made our videos the same way. I'm not downing the intelligence of any user, but you have to make them at a Fisher-Price level. Our same thing with our support for it. I don't know, I have not seen a support ticket for software shortcut, and I don't know how long, because I think our students are doing it. We wrote up a maybe 7-sentence support canned email. We immediately mail out to them. I can't do this, I can't do that. Please watch these videos, and this should help you out. We don't say anything else. We don't put anything other than there. One of our best examples of it, and it worked, was a doctor. I don't know where they were from. I do, but I'm not saying it. He sent us an email. I can't log in. Great, I can help you. Please watch these videos. I can log in, but I can't download and upload a file. I sent an email. As soon as I hit send, I received another one back saying, oh, I found it, I watched the video. That's success right there, okay? By not saying anything else, we still make the emails personal, but when it comes to support, you have to make your systems very simplistic. It sounds like it's overkill, but it saves our jobs and it'll save employees' sanity.
So we want to open up the time. I know we love to talk on and on, but we want to have the time to open up the floor to any questions that you folks might have. So there is a Q&A. There's a Q&A panel in your Zoom link. If you post any questions there, we'll all be able to see them and answer them. And I don't believe we've allowed for video or audio interaction with the participants, with the viewers. But please do send us questions in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to talk about them at any point. You can also just send in questions in the chat, and we'll be happy to talk about any part of this level of service. I've got it pulled up here, Dave. But we'll stick around to answer questions for the next 10 minutes or so. Jessica included her contact information earlier in the chat. She's a good point of contact for really any of us, because she understands, not just the technical side, but also the administrative side of what we all do. So if you have questions individually for any of us, we'll be happy to provide information for you. But Jessica is also a good place to start if you just don't know where. But so for now, I guess, thank you all for coming and attending this webinar on virtualizing software.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like us to answer about any part of the infrastructure, what we've done, why we selected Citrix over VMware, or I know there's a few open source type that one of the UCs is using?
Well, we'll stay on and we'll keep recording for about another 10 minutes. So that way, if anybody, oh, we do have a question here. So the first question from Mike Franks is, any plans to add more info to app details links? Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. What about the details links here in Software Shortcut?
What would you like to see? Because I can add, it's kind of something that happens every time I go over looking at this stuff. What am I going to put in the description? Am I going to use a keyword to make it go to a featured panel, as they call it? Or am I going to, on the CLICC side, keep CLICC software so I know? Or do I put in the version number, what it is? The panels are pretty much for everyone to use immediately, rather than going through the applications or typing in something to search for, like Office, like that. It's just a little easier, better pleasing on the eyes to get to.
So that info is searchable, Dave?
Yes.
And so that's pretty much what you're considering when you add description text in there, what users might be searching for?
Honestly, it depends on the time of the day I'm doing this.
All right, so it's at the whims of David.
Yes. There's the freedom.
So a clarification to that question might be, what about some information about what the software does if it's unfamiliar to you? Does that correspond to the information that you think that we will include here on Software Shortcut? And we also want to note that having the version number is a very good thing.
You know what? That's a good point, and I like it. For the most part, for the CLICC side, I'll go to that tab. So for the CLICC side, Software Shortcut, I have it in the panels: CAD, Adobe Alternative, Statistics. Staff will know what it is they're using. Not exactly what the programs do, like for statistics stuff. I'll be honest with you. I install it and I gotta ask somebody else, how do I use this? Is this working? I don't use any of this software, and after starting them up, I frankly don't want to use any of them. They are pretty complicated and heavy duty. So a lot of our students, since our primary user is the undergraduates, and staff already know what the software is, they already know what this software is on the undergraduate side too. Especially graduate side, they already know. And I will say this on top of that, this isn't part of that, but we tried something with the library application and I wasn't getting a response from anyone. Maybe I asked the wrong people. You can technically, probably through Shibboleth or maybe Google, EDU, you can have everyone in the UC system access it with their personal logon. So right now, you've got to have a UCLA Log On. You can go create one and access it. I don't have identity access management yet. I'm still working on that with our departments on campus. But it is not out of the realm to make sure that anyone on campus can do it. And I was trying to do that with some library software to do a push to unify cataloging with Archivist Toolkit. We didn't get too many places because there's a lot of politics on that. But just think of the possibilities of that one. Centralized applications for all UC students.
So we have more questions piling up. So I hate to move on, but I hope that we answered that question more in detail. And if not, contact us afterwards. So the next question we have on the docket is, why did we select Citrix over VMware?
Okay. Okay, so one of our requirements was we don't want any passwords. We don't want any accounts. The only way we were going to get accounts and passwords to match stuff up, or I think it was just accounts, was we would have to have a downloaded file from our registrar's office, and we'd have to import that. And it's a nightly download, and then we'd have to import that the next day, and then that's every day of the year. We did that for our printing system years ago, and we were sick of it because people could sign up for an account, register at UCLA that day. They may not get on the system for a few days, so they can't get to this stuff. Nah, we didn't want that. So that was one. VMware couldn't do it, and I forgot the other ones we looked at. They couldn't do it. Citrix said profile management was the other one. Citrix, all right. Citrix can do it. It's horrible, but there's hope since they bought a company we really like and we were looking at. Then there's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which I forgot their names, but you basically need 3 dedicated staff if you want to do it right. That's another reason. We want to move a lot of this stuff. Our complete desktop is virtual now, and we use that for our hardware. We want to make sure we can use that for all the crazy applications and plugins for staff.
So I hate to cut off the discussion. Again, good questions here, but we do have more questions, so I want to move on. Again, contact us afterwards if you want to know more about Citrix versus VMware. So we have a question about the authentication method that we landed on, the one that you were told wasn't possible. How does that work, and what is it exactly that we're doing? Do you think you can break it down in a minute or less?
Okay, so we have a NetScaler, which, all right, I'll start this off that I was a big adversary to VDI. When it first came, when it was first going, I was saying no up and down the halls. I thought it was horrible.
Then you got asked to.
Yeah, then I got asked to say, you're on the team for it. I'm like, great, thanks. And then I saw how it worked. And then we went and we saw Citrix on their Zen app product at that time did anonymous authentication, anonymous access. So we said, cool, let's try with the NetScaler to see if we can do anonymous, authenticate with their BOL, the Bruin, UCLA Bruin, UCLA Log On ID, and then make them anonymous on the back end. And we did. And it's a little bit of a complicated process. The front part on the NetScaler, which is the requirement for us, you probably could use F5, but it doesn't play nicely with Citrix, is that you need an account on the system that has read access. Every domain system has this. Pray to God that whatever system you're accessing is SSL and is using, make sure they're SSL and have that certificate and they can give it to you. Otherwise, you are only protecting it from you to them. So you may be SSL on the front end, but you're not SSL on the back end for the authentication. The second part is you have to do some configuration changes on the Citrix storefront server, which is the screen you're looking at now. You need to, and then you have to make a few minor configuration changes, and you're done, and it works. And Citrix is always surprised when you call them up.
So I'm sure there's a lot more to go into that, but again, we have a couple more questions. Want to make sure to move on. So a question is, have you investigated Amazon Workspaces? How does it compare with Citrix?
It's not the same. So what I understand, I don't know a lot about Amazon Workspaces, but I do know what it's for. It's kind of like pay as you go, as you need it. You spin it up. Now we could move, we are looking at a redundancy of moving our Citrix environment, half of it over to that, making it so that this goes down. But the Workspaces it's not going to give us what we need and the configurability of it for the staff side. Our staff image is not as complicated as CLICC, but it's complicated. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Amazon services. Yeah, it may seem like they're up a lot. There's just something there that's not striking me as worth paying the money for. Especially if something goes out in-house or somebody's connection. It's not a control issue. If they have a slow computer, I can troubleshoot that faster for their home than I could on Amazon, saying your connection to Amazon is horrible. I can't tell. There's a lot that's missing that I would have to investigate more to see if it's worth the money on that.
So another question that we have here, this is going to be a tricky one, is if you add up staff costs, hardware, licenses, etc., what is your all-in cost per user for this setup? Or if you have a different metric for costs, what is?
Yeah, that's on my mind. It really is on my mind. I just will not do the cost analysis at this point. I could do it. I know what formula I need, where to go with it. But I have to look at it, is this gonna make a difference? And is it going to change the situation for the better, worse, good, or is it personal information? Right now it's personal information, and I let other people deal with what the cost is gonna be. I think we all do on this one.
Yeah, none of us are payroll types or purchasing folks, in case that helps a little bit.
Your soft cost value, though, is insane.
Yeah.
You cannot, when it comes to anything virtual, I don't care who you go with, your soft cost is saved a ton. We have applications on here on the staff side that are absolutely horrible to install. I'll put it to you this way. I have an application right now requested from our catalog and metadata department. This piece of software, homebrewed, written by somebody who updates it every so often, I have to log on to 26 computers and install them one by one. I am praying to God I can virtualize this sometime soon or remotely install it on those computers, because I only have to do it in one place. I don't have to log on, and I'm refusing to do it at 11 o'clock at night anymore. I've already done this 3 times. So that's where your soft costs alone, I mean, it's worth it just for that. It's worth it for proxying instead of using 1,000 open source different pieces of software that require different setups, and you can just have one NetScaler to do your authentication for each one of those apps.
I think a good way to contextualize the cost, especially the soft costs of the virtualized apps, is to compare it against our more traditional hardware-centric solutions like the lab, the computer classrooms, laptop lending that we also do. As Alan mentioned, each individual laptop we lend is over $2,000 just for the hardware. And we have over 500 of them right now. And we have been on a 4-year cycle for our fleets right now. So you can do the math. It's an expensive operation. Plus, you can account for the fact that at least a significant chunk of all of our time, all the panelists that you've spoken to, we spend supporting these services. And I mean, I'm talking specifically about the hardware end of it, the computer lab, the computer classrooms, and the laptop lending. So to put a fine point on it, there are more people than us. We're only a small part of the full-time staff workforce that supports CLICC services and the hardware. As Dave pointed out, though, there are really only 2 people, him and one other coworker, who understand the virtual environment to the level that they do. And Alan also comes in for input on that. So that's 3 full-time staff with part of their time to support all the virtual software, compared to the maybe 10 full-time staff who have to deal with all the hardware for CLICC. I guess if you really pare it down for people who deal with it a lot, it's maybe more like 4 full-time staff.
But I mean, we're, in addition to the initial cost of buying all that hardware, we then have to track it.
Oh yeah.
And we have to develop all these policies and inform and message to
enforce
users. We have to enforce these policies. We have to make sure all of our student workers know the policies and can enforce them properly. And even then, you know, things do fall through the cracks because there's just so many things for us to track. And this is actually a major issue that we deal with is recovering missing laptops and dealing with theft of our hardware or tampering of our hardware. And every one of these incidents requires staff hours to address. Virtualization just eliminates all of that.
And in case you think oh, it's just, you know, a one-off thing that you have to deal with the weirdness with the hardware, we have had everything from people straight up stealing. We were in the news a couple of years ago when someone stole 70 laptops from us. We got them back, fortunately.
2015. November 2015, if you want to check.
If you want to check it out, yeah.
It was a good one.
It was a great one. The Blue Shoes Bandit, I think they called it.
Yeah, we got him back.
Or how about there was a time when someone straight up just took our laptop for like a presentation to New York for a couple of months and we couldn't do anything about it. Oh no, they went to San Francisco for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just like, oh, I have it now. There's not a lot we can do about that. Or, you know, when people try to like give it to high school children to take their trips to like, they were at LAX going to go to Guatemala or something. And
I don't remember that one.
So
we have so many incidents.
You remove all of that with virtualization. So we do have one more question that we have here. The question is that there's a large catalog of software. Have we run into any issues with virtualization of certain software that prevented virtualizing that application? And if so, were you able to work around those issues? I can immediately think of some stuff.
Well, some applications we just can't virtualize.
Right.
Yet, like Dave mentioned, the Adobe CS Suite, which is obviously a very highly requested and used application suite. So unfortunately, just with Adobe's position right now, this is not something that we can virtualize and offer. So that's an example of software that we can't offer. Dave, were there any virtualization issues that you remember?
I can also, I want to bring up that while Dave's thinking, sometimes you run into issues if you yourself aren't the one who has the license for the software. Because we occasionally run into issues where other departments actually have the license and they share it with us because they know that we have a wider reach and we can let other students do it.
Yeah. So sometimes for some of our software configurations, we have to tell, for the licensing end of the software, we have to tell it to go out to a licensing server that's maybe not on our network. That's usually when Dave and I are coordinating. So I can make sure he has the right licensing info and for where to go there. But oftentimes we do have to do some kind of license hacks. Like I remember SPSS had an undocumented issue with licensing where I had to actually rename a licensing file to .old. And I mean, this was the official workaround for SPSS, which is a major application. Which it wasn't really documented. I kind of had to work with the representatives on my end when I was working on the master images that I was working on to get it to work. And then when it came time for Dave to get it to update SPSS on the virtual side of things, he was having this issue and he had to come ask me about it. And so I worked on it. So that was just an example of kind of hacking around to get something to work. But yeah, that does come up.
You know, homebrewed programs from faculty. They write a program, and you know, anyone can write a program. It's not hard to write a program correctly. That's a big difference. We have library applications that are our staff uses that are just, you're sitting there looking at it going, wow, really? Okay, because I don't know programming, but we need to figure this one out. We have other programs that make it so that the licensing is per user profile. So that means you can have a person log into one station with the application and it works, have a second person log in, and I need to put that licensing back into their profile. Then user one goes to another workstation and I have to do it again, and you can only do with administrative rights. So those are the kind of issues we run into. Flat out, probably, I haven't seen a program yet. I may have encountered one yesterday that I can't virtualize. But so far, we can technically virtualize anything except Adobe. And that's why we have Adobe alternatives. And I'm missing the Google CLICC.
Well, I just want to say there's a difference between what you can do and what the vendors per licensing contracts may allow. So some of these might get into to a gray area there. But my point is you just take it on a case-by-case basis, application by application. Most applications are usually very straightforward installs, but for some of the more popular and heavy-duty professional type applications, then you do start kind of mucking around. See, do I have to place some kind of registry key in the default profile? So when they log in, they get this setting. Is there some kind of license file that has to be placed and some kind of server that needs to be configured for licensing? But we do it on a case-by-case basis to figure these things out. And it does take troubleshooting. It does take some effort. There's usually no one-size-fits-all solution.
But I would say that the key thing that I'm hearing from both you guys is that it does take a conversation with the people who make the software or also the people who want the software. Because remember, none of us are necessarily experts in these individual bits of software. So just because you have to install on your virtual server or you have to install on the local computers a program, you're not going to know what it does necessarily or how to do it well yourself. So you need to constantly have a conversation with the people who own the software and the people who want to use it to make sure that you're installing it and configuring correctly and that it's having the desired effect for the end user. It does take a process, but when you put in that effort up front, you see high returns because as time goes on, there are less and less problematic bits of software. There are less and less issues that we have. As Dave pointed out, when we really put in the effort to create simpler and simpler instructions and to create a simpler and simpler login system, we started getting less problems and higher use. When you put in that upfront issue, that upfront time, it allows for the users to just use the software the way they want to. And we're very fortunate that we work in a unit that gives us the time and resources to put in that sort of effort. So that's been something that's been good for us.
Did we also mention the other hat we wear is we're our own project managers from beginning to end.
We have a project manager now.
Yeah, we have one finally. We're 10 minutes over just about. So we're going to end it here, and we're going to send over the video file to Alexa, and it'll be up for viewing. So if you have any questions, please contact us, and we'll do what we can. And I'm always looking to make contacts and talk to other universities. We can send you as much information as possible. So thank you very much for joining, and I hope you enjoyed it.